Hi everyone, my name is Charlie Poretti and we're going to be going over my product, which is the Wheel of Culture for the Affirming Diversity Project 2022. So table of contents, we're going to start off with the introduction, which includes the driving question, and then its relation to the CRT principles. Then we'll move on to number 3, which is the actual product with overview and examples. And finally, we'll finish with the beneficiaries and so who and why benefits from this product. So number 1, introduction. How did I come up with my driving question? So brief history, I'm not currently an educator, but for this project, I'm pretending that I'm a 6th grade math teacher and that I have students from different cultures and speak primarily non-English languages at home. So with this scenario, I learned that my students don't really seem very engaged in the lessons and concepts I'm trying to teach. I thought, why? Do they just not understand? Or is math just not really useful to them and pretty boring? So this gave me an idea, which is my driving question. How can I help math teachers reshape their lessons to connect culturally with their students? So number 2, how does this relate to the CRT principles? So the 3 principles that I believe my driving question relates to is number 6, reshaping the curriculum. So the goal of this question is to address previously created lessons plans and change or add aspects of students' culture within them. And then number 3, learning within the context of culture. The new altered lesson plan will be presented with aspects of the student's culture, whether in examples, homework, etc., etc. And finally, number 1, positive perspectives on parents and families. So the teacher is developing a better understanding of each student's home culture, thus creating a positive outlook on each student's families and how they behave. So how does the driving question fit into this puzzle? So here we can think of the 3 CRT principles as 3 pieces of a puzzle, and the driving question, which can be thought of as like the final piece. It's the solution to these 3 and how to involve them into our lesson plans and overall incorporate culturally responsive teaching into our classrooms. So number 3, let's move on to the actual product with instructions to create it and examples. So my product is the Wheel of Culture, which is basically just a spinning wheel, but with a spin, if you will, on it to make it into culturally responsive teaching. Okay, so product overview. The Wheel of Culture is supposed to be used as an inspiration tool for educators to incorporate specific cultural objects from their students into their lesson or classroom activities. The wheel is meant to be left in the classroom on display and can be used all throughout the school year. Rather than just using the same objects over the year, each wheel is personalized to your classroom of that semester year to ensure that their specific cultures and their home life is incorporated into this year's wheel. So we can think of the Wheel of Culture as creative, unique, likable, tangible, useful, resourceful, and engaging, or culture. So what is the Wheel of Culture? So we think of like an ordinary spinning wheel, that's what it really looks like. But since spinning wheels are used in many different scenarios and created by individuals to fit their specific needs, so we take this ordinary wheel and it's a fun tool which can be used into culturally responsive teaching with a specific purpose. And that purpose is to be a facilitator of cultural representation in the classroom. So we move from culture to the students, to the educator, and then to incorporation into the classroom. So here's the step-by-step creation product to make each year with your students. So number 1, at the beginning of the school year, instruct students to bring in an object that they feel represents their culture. Depending on the class size, if you need more objects or less objects, you can kind of go with there or do this as a partnering project. Number 2, allow students to present the objects to the class and discuss what it represents. So they can write a sentence or 2 in their preferred language to summarize how this object relates to their specific culture. Number 3, take a photo as the educator of each object and place it as well as its corresponding sentences into each section of the spinning wheel. Educators can also participate in this for fun and as demonstration purposes for their students. And finally, number 4, display the wheel of culture in the classroom throughout the school year. If educators teach multiple classes of students in the same room or at the same time, display each wheel throughout the classroom, not just one. So can I recycle old objects or wheels? So we look at this quote from Nito to basically show why we personalize each object. And this quote is, "Unfortunately, however, multicultural education is often approached as if there were a prescribed script. So we're trying to avoid this script by making the wheel of culture personalized to each student each year and have it in the classroom on display. You can display old wheels if you would like to and just kind of have them all up for even more options, but we want to make a new wheel each year with each group of students." So here's an example of a wheel that I made. It's my personal wheel of culture, and it has all different aspects of what I think my culture is as a whole. And on their own, these objects don't really look like they relate at all to one culture. I mean, there's like Toronto maple leaves, there's Parmesan cheese, it doesn't really look like it relates, but this is why we have each student write those 2 sentences in step 2 of the creation process to basically kind of show that it's not just a random object, but it's significant to them. So as an example, we have in the top left a box of Timbits. So Timbits is really known. It's a coffee shop in Canada, and they were enjoyed at every sporting event and always as a celebration, dessert or anything like that. And it just kind of shows a Canadian side of myself. And then over on the top right, we have just a teacup with a spoon for sugar. And I started drinking tea with milk and sugar when I was 6, maybe even younger, who knows. And it was a way to basically connect me with my mom because she loves tea, and she loves tea because her mom loves tea, and it basically got passed down from like English heritage, and it may be stereotypical, but it was true for my family to have tea and crumpets. And then on the bottom in the purple section, we have a stovetop coffee maker, and it was used after almost every big meal like Christmas, Easter, big holiday meals in my Italian household. And it was really common for all of us to just enjoy a nice cup of espresso to kind of wake us up after that big Italian meal with a lot of bread and everything. So this is my wheel, and we're going to be using it within these next examples to show how the wheel of culture can be used. So here we have a calculation example, and it's from about grade 7 level geometry. So math classes often involve calculations like area, perimeter, etc. Instead of using shapes that really have no significance to students, the wheel of culture is used to offer alternate ideas to demonstrate and practice these calculations. So here we have a simple shape of a rectangle within the Timbits box, and the teacher has incorporated the length and width of the rectangle so that students can use it to practice calculating area. But you might be asking, what if there's no perfect shapes for my students on the wheel? How can I still use it? In that case, we can look at a Venn diagram, which is kind of like grade 2 data representation. So math classes don't just consist of these types of calculations that require perfect shapes. We use the Venn diagram to illustrate logical relationships between 2 or more items. So here we used the soccer ball, the tea set, Toronto Maple Leafs logo, and the Canadian money to show, and their colors to show how the Venn diagram is used. So we have the color objects that use white, which is the soccer ball and the teacup on the one side. In the center, the Toronto Maple Leafs logo has blue and white, so it's the comparison, as we all know, Venn diagram. But these objects are much more significant to our students and might allow them to incorporate their own things into the lesson. Another example would be basic counting. So for younger students, we're still learning to count, add, subtract, and it's often that teacher will use things like building blocks to demonstrate the value of 1 + 1 = 2. Instead of these building blocks, we can demonstrate the value of an object for the value of a number with an object from the wheel of culture. So here, students can use coins as a building block to learn how numbers represent value. These objects can be used for counting, like 1 coin, 2 coin, 3 coin, etc. And later on, we can use the actual coins as value of dollars. So 5 cents plus 5 cents equals 10 cents. And then down below here, I showed both concepts of just using the coins as a building block to represent two objects total, or their value, which is 25 cents plus 25 cents equals 50 cents. Another geometry example, but this one from levels K through high school. So the fundamentals of geometry involve concepts such as two-dimensional, three-dimensional, labeling shapes, number of sides, etc. Educators can use the objects from the Wheel of Culture to demonstrate and practice these concepts rather than just using non-personalized shapes. Again, so we're going to start off with the left side, which is a block of Parmesan cheese, and students can use it to label and practice saying it's a triangle, three-dimensional, has three sides. And the soccer ball, circle, sphere, depending on how you look at it, it's three-dimensional and has one side. But objects that don't really have a visible shape, we can still use those. So the Timbix box can be used as a rectangle, and the turtle can be used to represent an oval as long as the educator just finds these shapes within the object and you draw them out for students to find. They can still be used and personalized. So the only limits to the Wheel of Culture are how big our imagination is. The goal of this product is to give educators concrete objects as inspiration to incorporate into their lessons. So whatever you can imagine you can do with these objects in your lessons plans is the only limits you really have. So what can you add? So my product, I don't want it to just be my examples. I want it to be collaborative so that everybody can kind of get more ideas and keep going. So this slideshow is the product for educators to keep adding to their examples of how they have used the Wheel of Culture in the classroom, which just gives more educators more ideas for them to use and maybe benefit from. So number 4, who benefits from this product? So the beneficiaries include teachers, students, and families. So teachers, they gain a deeper understanding of all their students through the objects that they bring and what they talk about. And they are expanding their knowledge about different cultures, not only to benefit their teachings, but as a worldview. The students, they may feel more connected and enthusiastic about what they're learning by connecting it to their own culture. And even students that are not MLLs may enjoy the presence of this wheel in the classroom to make it more personalized and more fun. And then finally, we have families. So the families may feel more connected to their child's learnings. This might encourage them to even play a more active role in their child's homework if it relates to their home culture. A little bit more interesting. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I hope you found this resource helpful and can use it in future. If you want to add to the slides, I can give my professor my email and we can keep adding to them. All right, thank you, everybody.